They say the clothes make the man, but in Hollywood, they often tell his story. Or hers. These are the top 10 movie wardrobes of all time. Kicking us off at number 10, we've always loved marveling at the wild, creative, and often bizarre takes on the future that costume designers have given us in sci-fi. Consider Star Wars' pseudo-Japanese Western military chic, Blade Runner's neo-noir cultural potpourri, and The Matrix's iconic Leatherfest. Or Metropolis's beautiful android, Tron's glowing jumpers, and Barbarella's sexy spacesuits. And who could forget the bizarro fashionscapes of Dune and A Clockwork Orange? However, for our first pick, we're giving it to The Fifth Element.
Unbelievable!
Designed by the legendary Jean-Paul Gaultier, is there a sci-fi character with better wardrobe than Ruby Rhod? But it's not just that. There's Lilu's iconic white straps, Gary Oldman's frigid turtlenecks, and that blue opera alien's awesome whatever that is. Gaultier personally designed over 900 costumes for the film, from the stars to the extras, with an eye towards playing with and against notions of sexuality and gender. It's one of the coolest, kookiest, most comic-conable sci-fi wardrobes out there, which is why it starts off our list. Now here at Cinefix, we watch a lot of movies, and sure, most of them are English-language films, but we like to make an effort to keep it global too. So for our number 9, we want to give our appreciation to some of the excellent films that came from beyond our American borders. And from France, that might be the costuming from The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. From Japan, it might be from Ran. From Hong Kong, it might be In the Mood for Love. Or from China, it might be Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But for our pick, we're pretty torn between Yimou Zhang's Hero and House of Flying Daggers. Call it obvious or over the top, but to our eye, the use of color costuming in these two films is absolutely poetic, with Hero dividing up its vignettes into primary colors and House of Flying Daggers weaving them fluidly into the story. Both were based on Wuxing color theory, both were designed by Emi Wada, and both are pretty much equally incredible. Do we have to pick just one? Fine, we'll go with Hero, by like the width of a nipple hair. But we're not happy about it. If there's one thing Hollywood's always been the best at, it's being cool. So for our number 8, we want to single out the films that made us all want to burn our closets and deck out like a goddamn badass. We're talking about Shaft, Kill Bill, Fight Club, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We're talking about James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. We're talking about Brando in The Wild One. But if you really want to talk Brando and cool, look no further than A Streetcar Named Desire.
Oh, you're still sister.
He is.
Oh, hi. Hey, where's the woman?
That's right, it's pretty much just a sweaty t-shirt here, but no one had ever worn one like this before. Thanks to designer Lucinda Ballard, Brando took an afterthought and turned it into the definitive bad boy look. God damn was he cool. Next up at number 7, we're going from cool to hip. We're looking at the offbeat take on trends. And maybe that's Big Lebowski's slacker chic or Annie Hall's androgynous digs, but if we're thinking hip, we've got to tip our pastel-colored hats to the king, Wes Anderson. And that could be the Zubrowskian fashion from Grand Budapest Hotel or the miniature tweed of Fantastic Mr. Fox, but instead our pick goes to the immense character captured by the costumes in the Royal Tenenbaums.
You've made a cuckold of me.
I know.
All custom-made and brilliantly detailed. Take Margot's look, for example. It's sloppy, yet precisely chosen. The same thing she's always worn, wealthy yet dated, stuck in the era of her family's heyday with a little sportiness to tie her into the rest of the family. Were the Tenenbaums the original hipsters? Probably not. But they came up just on the cusp, and they're our favorite hipster family yet. At number 6, we were bound to get here eventually. If we're ranking movie fashion, we can't ignore the period piece. That's right, as far as the Academy Awards are concerned, the only good costumes are period costumes. The Baroque, big-bustled hoop dresses of the Victorian era. Don't get us wrong, we love the wardrobes from Shakespeare in Love, Titanic, Gigi, Amadeus, Anna Karenina, and Marie Antoinette. Hell, even the outfits from Cleopatra will knock your socks off if you want to look a bit farther back. And we know we're missing a ton of mentions. It's really hard for us not to pick Gone with the Wind, but for our number 6, there's nothing quite so lavish as the bajillion and one massive gowns from Elizabeth the Golden Age.
Tell Philip, I fear neither him, nor his priest, nor his armies.
And to those we say, holy shit. Talk about excess. If costumes were special effects, these would be the Transformers of dresses. Designed by Alexandra Byrne, the costumes took a more haute couture look at the Elizabethan garb than any other period films, playing with the performative aspects of the clothes, their sexiness, and their emotionality. course, not all period pieces come from an era where men rode horses and women came with a dowry. The 20th century is rife with opportunities for an incredible wardrobe. The 20s, both Great Gatsbys. The 30s, Bonnie and Clyde, Chinatown, and The Godfather. The snazzy cross-century progression of Malcolm X. The different sides of the 70s from Dazed and Confused, American Hustle, and Saturday Night Fever. Even the 90s Valley Girl look from Clueless. But for our number 5 pick, it's gotta be the 50s. Albert Wolski's Black Leather and Hot Pink from Grease.
Hey, Zuko! I got a surprise for you.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
For a movie about being hip and cool, Grease certainly nails it. From Danny's slicked back leather and a t-shirt, thank you Marlon Brando, to Sandy's virginal white and pastel skirts and dresses, to every Rizzo and Kenickie in between. And Olivia Newton-John's final transformation? Yes, please. But what of the beautiful women in stunning dresses we haven't mentioned yet? We saved them for our number 4. There's Moulin Rouge, La Dolce Vita, and Pretty Woman. There's the breathtaking green dress from Atonement and the beautiful yellow one from How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Because sometimes it only takes one to turn heads. But if there's a single dress that stands out in Hollywood fashion history more than any other, it's Marilyn Monroe's from The 7-Year Itch.
Ooh, do you feel the breeze from the subway? Isn't it delicious?
The light ivory cocktail dress has been carved into the fashion history books. It was designed by William Trevia, or was it just bought off the rack? Did the immodesty of the scene lead to Marilyn's divorce? Was she having an affair with the designer? Rumors of Marilyn and the dress abound, but regardless of what's fact or fiction, the truth remains, it was one hell of a dress. Of course, men get to dress up too, and if you've noticed a serious lack of haberdashery on this list, well, that's because we've been saving it for our number 3. And with so many choices, there's a lot to love. A Hard Day's Night, North by Northwest, Reservoir Dogs, A Single Man, Top Hat, Kingsman, and don't forget pretty much every Bond film ever. And we've got to give an honorable shout out to Gold Rush for Charlie Chaplin's debut of the sloppy, besuited tramp. However, for our number 3, there's nothing quite like the Vegas excess from Marty Scorsese's Casino.
Before I ever ran a casino or got myself blown up, Ace Rothstein was a hell of a handicapper.
That's right. And while designer Rita Ryak deserves lots of credit for her 30-plus lavish looks for Sharon Stone's Ginger, she really clinches this spot with her 70 costumes for De Niro, all handmade, including 45 custom suits. Her bespoke vintage sartorial digs perfectly track his rise, heyday, and eventual fall. Sure, they're gaudy and excessive and pretty hideous by today's standards, but this was suiting for the 70s, and for that, it was perfect. Now there's style, and then there's fashion. And that's where our number 2 comes in, because there are some films that have perfectly captured the look a la mode, either because they were about it, like The Devil Wears Prada and Coco before Chanel, or because they pretty much built it, like Breathless. But if there's any film that was on the bleeding edge of fashion, it's Breakfast at Tiffany's. And that's thanks to the dynamic duo made up of Givenchy and Edith Head.
Don't you just love it?
Love what?
Tiffany's.
Now maybe you've heard of Givenchy, but who's Edith Head, you ask naively? Only the most badass costume designer ever, nominee for 35 Academy Awards, winner of 8, pretty much a fashion legend, and also, does she not look a little familiar?
This is a hobo suit, darling. You can't be seen in this. I won't allow it.
The look of Breakfast at Tiffany's is unforgettable, and it's largely thanks to Givenchy and Edith's marvelous fashion. Now we've seen the past, the future, and everything in between, but for our number 1, we've saved ourselves for fashion's wildest landscape, fantasy. So what do we got? Well, there's the entire Peter Jackson / Tolkien universe, and then there's Enchanted, Alice in Wonderland, and Edward Scissorhands too. We really love the uber-stylized imagination of the costumes from Tarsem Singh's The Fall, as well as his freshman effort, The Cell, along with pretty much everything Terry Gilliam has ever designed. And what about superhero movies? Those are fantasy too, and as far as they go, we love the latest incarnations of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and especially circa The Dark Knight's Batman. He can finally turn his head. But if we're talking fantasy, there's nothing more memorable, more quintessential, more perfectly designed than the wardrobes from The Wizard of Oz.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Even the ruby red slippers on their own deserve a spot on this list. Is there one piece of Hollywood clothing more iconic? The entire wardrobe was designed by Adrian. That's right, he just goes by Adrian, one of the golden age of Hollywood's most famous designers. And what could possibly be better than the Cowardly Lion's fur, the Tin Man's silver funnel, the Scarecrow's burlap sack, the Wicked Witch's pointy hat, and Dorothy's blue pinafore? We can't think of anything, which is why we think this is the best movie wardrobe of all time. So, what do you think? Did we leave out one of your favorite movie wardrobes? Do you disagree with one of our picks? Do you have any ideas for future top 10 lists? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more Cinefix movie lists.